Hey, this is Ryan from Dakota Angler and Outfitter, and today we're going to be tying the Foxy Minnow, which has been a good fly for me fishing white bass, smallmouth, largemouth. We fish it a lot on the Missouri River near Pier when the white bass fishing is good, but it's a real simple fly. It's really durable and it catches a lot of fish. We're using a size 2 Gamakatsu B10S, and 210 denier white ultra thread. Start your thread at the eye, wind back a bit, and build kind of a base up here that your eyes are going to sit on. I'm going to be using some pretty big dumbbell eyes on this fly just to help get it down. I'd say you want the eyes between 1/4 and 2/3 of the way back. We're using orange double pupil lead eyes in size large on this size of hook, but just match the dumbbells to whatever size hook you're using. But just figure 8 your eyes on, and don't be afraid to use a lot of thread here. This is where most of these flies fail usually, is when the eyes start spinning around and you can't really keep them where you want them. So use plenty of thread to hold them down. Alright, like that. And then we're going to take some white bucktail to begin with and kind of make sure the tips are reasonably even. I kind of combed this piece out and picked out the short and long pieces. You're never going to get them perfect, but you can get them pretty darn close. And on this, you're going to make the bucktail. I like this fly a little longer. I'd say about 1.5 hook length off the back of the hook. So pinch that. I tie it in right behind the beads, or right behind the eyes, sorry. And do a couple loose wraps, and then kind of tighten down and continue to wrap back. And then I trim the excess off right now. Kind of clean that up, and then wind it all the way to the back, like that. And if you tighten your thread down, it'll kind of flare the bucktail out. And then we're going to use white Steve Farrar blend. And what I do here is I cut a piece that's about twice as long as I need it, and I lay the first piece over the top of the bucktail, tie it down. So then you have it tied down in the middle now, and I'll take and split this, the front facing piece, and push it around the hook and kind of bring it back so most of it's underneath of the hook that way. So you're kind of veiling that whole piece of bucktail with this piece of Steve Farrar blend. It gives it kind of a cool translucent look to the fly. Alright, like that. If you have any real long pieces, you can trim them off, but I prefer to have mine just a little longer than the tail. Let's get the camera over a little bit here. But about like that. It gives it a nice kind of translucent, fishy look. Bring your thread back up to the eyes. I'm going to take a few pieces of crinkle mirror flash, and just in pearl, probably 4 or 5 pieces. We're going to wrap it for a body actually. This isn't a crucial step, but gives you a nice kind of flashy underbody this way. You can omit this step if you like, but I like how it looks, and it doesn't take a whole lot longer to do. So just bring it back to where you tied the tail in. Bring your thread back up behind the eyes, and then you just wrap this for a body. And don't be too concerned if there's a few gaps in it. It's just kind of to get a flashy underbody. Right up to the eyes, and then tie it down. And trim off your extra. You can save that if you want, if it's long enough, because we're going to put a little flash on the front of the fly. And now we're going to take a piece of Arctic Fox, and this is what's going to make the head of your fly. And when you're working with Arctic Fox, make sure you comb out or pluck out most of the short fibers in the underfur, because you definitely want it to be pretty full. And I take out the longer guard hairs too, so you just end up with kind of a full fuzzy piece like that. Then what I do now is take, and I like this to hang just a bit over the tail tie-in point, pass the hook just a little ways like that, do a couple loose wraps, and then cinch it down, maybe one more just for good measure, like that, and then bring your thread in front of the eyes, and I pull this over the eyes and tie it down like you'd do like a Clouser minnow. Give that a couple good wraps just to make sure everything's cinched down nice, and pull up the extra and trim it off. The nice thing about Fox rather than Bucktail is it makes a nice clean, it's easy to tie down, it makes a nice clean smooth head up here, which I really like. So then invert your hook in the vise. You're going to take another piece of Arctic Fox. Make this one just a little bigger. I like the bottom to be a little fuller than the top. Just kind of balances the fly out and gives it that little bit slower sink rate you want sometimes, so you can kind of hang the fly in front of the fish's face. About like that. And I make this on the same length, so kind of measure it out against your top wing. Like so. Do a loose wrap, another loose wrap, tighten it down. The loose wraps just kind of keep everything on top of the hook, rather than if you do tight wraps, it always wants to push it over to the other side. So once you get that spread how you like it, make sure it's kind of even on both sides. Give it a couple good wraps to make sure it's tied down, and trim off your excess. And then kind of smooth that head up a little bit, just so you have a nice smooth taper to your head. And then we're going to take those pieces of crinkle mirror flash that we had left over, and what I do is I just pretty much split them in half so they go just a little ways past the end of your head. Tie those down, give them a couple wraps like that, and then I'll take the other piece and go forward just a little bit and then fold that back also, so you've got kind of two even clumps on each side. And I'll trim these ones just a touch, not like that. It just gives the fly a little extra flash. And then just make sure your head's nice and smoothed up, so you got a nice tapered head, and then take and whip finish on the front of the hook. Like that. And then trim off your thread. And that's it. It's a pretty easy fly. You can tie it. I really like white. White's always a good option. Chartreuse is another one that really works. You can tie it in about any color. Just kind of match the bait fish that the fish are eating, and you'll do just fine. Thanks for watching.